This is a spotlight on our BIPOC scholars and vendors, and I'm really excited to see their work. Want to give a shout out real quick to MPL. Thanks so much for hosting our Zoom panels this weekend. I'm Quinn. I'm at the bindery over as the Milwaukee, as the Zine programs director to take a step back. The bindery is the host of Milwaukee Zine Fest, and we're really excited that we were able to take this virtually and safely, and that we were all able to celebrate zines together this weekend. I want to give a shout out to Milwaukee Public Library again for being one of our general hosts for Zine Fest, as well as this year Woodland Pattern, who has taken on the incredible task of hosting our vendors and creating a space for us to have a virtual vendor shop. So I'm going to plug that into the chat, and I hope you can all check that out this weekend while zines are still live, and check out how incredibly talented our vendors are. 100% of profits go to them, so please support them. Real quick, anyone that's watching on the YouTube stream, if you want to ask any questions to our vendors, hop on over to the Zoom, which is over on milwaukeezinefest.org, and then you'll be able to join in the conversation. And with that, I want to hand the mic over to our wonderful creators.
I'm going to do it.
Yep.
I'll go first. Hello, everyone. My name is Mecca, and I have been living in the city of Milwaukee my whole life. So born and raised, and like we were just sharing a little earlier, I just want to give respect to the indigenous name, which is Minnewaking, and I'm just so grateful to be in this city and be a creator here. I have a couple notes just to help me. So I'll just go from a little bit about me, I guess. I'm a mother and an artist. I've been making with my hands for as long as I can remember. I've always been into crafts and reading and writing a lot. I've been writing since I was 4 years old, reading and writing. And I have kept every journal I've ever written in. So I have over 100 journals at this point. And in 2019, I went through kind of a huge transformation within myself. And I finally was in the space where I could sit down and make this, which is, I have this is a collection of poetry. And I just love that this is an emerging voices within the Black and Indigenous people of color space, because when I learned about the DIY scene or punk rock or any of that, that whole culture. And then when I learned that Black people created punk, you know what I'm saying? Or just any of these alternative waves of being are also part of Indigenous practices, or being a folk artist is what I naturally am. But I didn't know that until I went to a folk art museum in Florida. And I was like, oh, folk art is art of the people. It's just, so I just love to be in this space, and I'm honored to be here and share this with y'all and all the other presenters and artists. So I'll just flip through this. So a little bit of my process. This is all my original photography, and this is my master copy. It's pretty thick. And I took all my journals that I've been writing in since I was 4. And obviously, I didn't have much worthy poems when I was 4, so most of my stuff is from 2012 to 2019 that's in here. But I typed everything up. So it's all like emailed. I emailed them all to myself so I could like let's have it in chronological order. Yeah. And it's all my original photography, like I said. So I cut and pasted all of this by hand. And the whole collection itself is called Heritage, or like Her It Age. So it's like heritage is the inheritance of the mother. And I wanted to have something that I could share with my children that comes from my heart and from my hands. Because a lot of this is like part of their story too, because they're my children. And when I'm not here in the physical, I want them to have something to tap back into my heart. And so, like I said, yeah, I've been writing for a long time. And so there's like 4 main voices that came out of all my poetry after I typed it all up and, you know, like really sat with it. And so the first voice is called Ma'ert, and it's the voice of the mother. And like you can read all about this on all my descriptions on the Woodland Pattern website under Mecca SD. Yeah, so I think the link's somewhere in here. And so yeah, there's 4 voices: Ma'ert, Magda Ova, which is an homage to like the Virgin Mary and really reimagining what even virgin means and what we've been taught it means, but really it's like, you know, being a vessel and being able to be filled. And it talks about how man turns a lover into a mother. And so that's a lot of my like love poetry. And then I have Kali Chloe, and Chloe is my birth name, the name my parents gave me. And I love that Kali is like the destructor goddess, you know, like the chaos queen. And then Chloe is a name that means, it's like a Hebrew name, and it means green shoot, or to, you know, sprout up or to blossom. And so I like that juxtaposition. And so a lot of that poetry is just like kind of like gnarly. It's just kind of like, it's kind of like getting a slap in the face from your mama, but you know, sometimes that's with love. And then the 4th one is Light Twerker, which is like the sexy voice of the mama, and just like being funny and just kind of like night walker type of vibes. So that's all available. And I made every page by hand, and it was a lot of fun to do, but it was also just like, you know, a labor of love. And so I put my children's, like a picture of me and my children on in every book, either on the back cover or on the inside of the back, just because, again, like this is literally a physical part of my children's inheritance, because it's part of their story. It's from me as their mother. It's literally their inheritance, or the beginning of it, right? I'm still working on my estate. You know, I'm getting all of those affairs in order. Being an Indigenous person and a sovereign being, you know, to proclaim nationality is also on my list. But this is the beginning of it. And so I have a picture of them and me, just so that they always know it's their property and their likeness is on it. And then I have a couple prints that I made for sale. And everything I just do, I kind of like, I just do it, you know, but it's always like inspiring. It's always inspired. And I like that the word inspired is like in spirit, you know, and I feel like I'm always living in ceremony. I'm always celebrating life, and doing the work to decolonize my mind is something that I have to do every moment, you know, and like, I believe that reparations are not given, you know, like that's something you have to take, just like you have to take your own freedom. And so that's what I strive to do. And that's what I like share in my work, but in my own way, because I let myself just like express it, and I don't really edit anything. Like you'll see, you know, when you, hopefully, you know, if you check out my zines, you'll see that I literally still have like, I wrote in something, I drew an arrow, I crossed something out, because I just let it be. And like really everything I create is for me, to just process what I've been going through in my life. And so the other 2 zines are a series called Mecca Musings. And it's just they're basically meditations on different chakras. So this is the first one I made. It's called Nice Digs, and it's about the root chakra. But this one's not available. It's very exclusive now because I only have one copy and I can't find the PDF. So these ones are for sale. And this one's about the third eye chakra and like seeing through illusions of, you know, like what society has taught us, and like shoveling out is like, you know, how can we clear all that? And it talks a lot about money, you know, and because I've really been doing the work to decolonize my money mindset and to acknowledge that I am a wealthy person, regardless of like how society defines wealth. You know, I live in abundance always. And so this is just, I feel like to my work, it just solidifies like what I have faith in, or like my vision for the future. It just helps me like to really, to get it on paper is like, it's a healing process for me for sure. So it's definitely therapeutic. I'm just looking at these notes again. So the pandemic changed some things about my process. I feel like I've already been living in isolation and doing a lot of the work that I feel like a lot of people were forced into, because I'm, you know, entrepreneur, self-employed, I'm a doula, I'm a mother, I'm a student. And so I've been, you know, just like finding ways to live sustainably, finding ways to consume less, finding ways to connect, you know, and in person, which all paid off. So it didn't really affect my my art so much, but all of this is from before the pandemic, I would say. But then this one, I guess, is March 2020. I don't know. Time seems so crazy. That's what the pandemic did. It just really affected my like the way that I view time. Um, mm, mm, mm. I wish I could see if there's, I don't know if there's any questions. I don't even remember where I would see that, but I think I'll maybe just read something. This is one of my favorite, well, I like all of them. I don't know if I have a favorite piece of mine, but I really like this one. It's called Sun Route, and it's all about the solar plexus and coming into yourself. And I guess this is like so fitting for my energy right now. I was even nervous to come on here because I have a lot of anxiety that I'm dealing with around like showing myself and sharing my work and all this. So I'm grateful to be here. But oh, is there a question? So this is, I scanned like all of these, and then I draw on them and like rescan them. So there's a quote at the beginning of this, which I really love, and it says, "Your life is your life. Know it while you have it. You are marvelous. The gods wait to delight in you." And I feel like that correlates to the solar plexus and, you know, like your sense of self, your personality, right? Which is like the sun, and like, how do I want to shine in the world? So this all just like really taps into that energy. Yeah, personality. So, and for these zines, the Mecca Musing ones, they all have like an editor's note, because I kind of made these like, they're like written, or they're like zine meditations, I guess I would say, but I have like an editor's note at the beginning because they're kind of, you know, zine is magazine. So, and I'm the editor and the whole, you know, I do all of it. So I'll just read this, and then I think I might be at my time. Dear ones, children of the sun, light workers and self-lovers, summertime and the living is easy, yes? Mama Nina said it best, but how in 2018 can we fully live with ease if the world around us presents us with conflicting thoughts and things? I have a plan, a map, a route, hence the name of this season's offering, Sun Route. Meditate with me on the solar plexus as we find the path for expression of our true selves. Some might say we are already on that path. Our ancestors left clues and comforts all around for us to discover on our various journeys. Think back to who you were from ages 14 to 21. What happened in your life and how much did you love yourself? Those years are formative to how we show up in the world. And if you're like me, those years were full of restriction and suppression. Leo energy loves loyalty to the self. Let yourself be seen, heard, and felt. The sun shines no matter who is looking, aware, or awake. Use these sacred pages to gently open up to the parts of you that are always bright, amid a foggy society that thrives on our dependence, depression, and disease. I believe we can make it in this life. We can be forever grateful for the challenges that the modern world presents, because by freeing our minds, we can taste and see how the world can truly be when all are free. Now comes the time to shine. I see you. Cosmically yours, Mecca. So that's my invitation. And I guess I will leave it at that with my words of wisdom to anyone, especially, like young, Black, Indigenous, people of color, any of us, like, this is our birthright, you know what I'm saying, to create the new world with the old ways that were left for us. And even if you don't share with anyone what you make, just keep making, because I've been, making for years, and like, I'm gonna be 30 next year. I'm turning 29 this year, so I'll be 30 in like 2 years, but still, I'm like just coming into like who I am. And I hope that your journey coming into yourself and your message is just like so bright and full of life, especially with the world that we're living in now. We need to be shining, you know what I'm saying? They need all this healing. So yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yay, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing your work with us. And with that, we are going to go to our next speaker.
Hello, my name is Andrea Pearson. I use she, her pronouns. I'm just gonna apologize in advance because I wrote notes. I also get irrationally nervous, so I will cry, but I'll be fine. So like I said before, my name is Andrea Pearson. I'm a comics artist and zine maker from Chicago. I've loved and read comics ever since I was a little kid. And from a pretty early age, I started drawing and expressing myself through comics. When I was really young, me and my brother used to have like a small comic series that we used to draw together about like a character who would just get into crazy situations. And then throughout high school, during classes, I used to just like draw comics in the margins of all my notebooks. I would draw comics about like the teachers and then share them with classmates, or draw comics about like high school crushes or about my depression. And in college, I went to school for animation, but continued to still express myself through comics. And I even took like a comic drawing elective where I learned more about like the craft of drawing comics. And shortly after graduating from college, I moved to New York. While living in New York, I was like really depressed and lonely. I didn't have any friends or family. It was me and my husband, just the two of us, moved out there for his job. And I started attending like a drawing meetup group where I met more people who drew comics. And it was kind of like an exciting point in my life as sort of like a challenge to get myself to draw more and keep exercising my craft. I started drawing a daily comic. I started small at first, just like a single panel every day, something that just illustrated like what I was doing that day. At the time, we were living in a pretty like crappy room in a house with several other people where we had to share the bathroom with a bunch of strangers that we didn't know. It was a very strange living situation. But at the time, I had drawn this comic about hating having to wear pants just to leave my room to go to the bathroom. And that's kind of where my whole like no pants revolution journey started, was with these comics. So I had collected these comics for a few years. I stopped drawing them every day, but like my sketchbook became a journal for me, like a way to draw about what I was doing, what I was feeling throughout my life. And through this comics meetup, I met people who were like me, just like regular people who had regular day jobs who were creating zines. And so I decided to compile all of my zines together, and that's kind of where like the first No Pants revolution started. This is him right here. This was from 2014, and it's a collection of some of those like single panel comics that I was telling you that I was drawing at the time. And let's see, sorry, going back to my notes. Most of my comics from this time are about being exhausted from work and living in this weird house that we lived in, and how glad we were when we finally got a place of our own, and constantly drawing about my depression and things of that nature. Drawing comics had become a sort of like therapy for me, and even before I compiled them into zines, it was just nice to just have some like sort of outlet for myself, like my sketchbook, where I could just, you know, compile my thoughts or anything that I was feeling, to just put them down on paper. And zines became a way of being able to share that with other people. So in, like I said, in 2014 was when I first self-published my first zine, my No Pants Revolution zine. And the thing that I like about No Pants Revolution in the series that I've sort of created is each one is like its own separate like glimpse into my life at that time. It's representative of that period of my life. And throughout that time, since 2014, when I first tabled at my first convention, until now, I've compiled 5 books, and since then have gotten some recognition from peers and things. I've gotten the chance to work on comics published in anthologies, and I'm excited to see like where my art career takes me next. But I think no matter what, one of the most important things is to keep creating zines, partially because I love how zines are like a cheap and easy way to share your life with other people. And another reason why I think it's important to make zines is because representation matters to me. Growing up and reading comics, I didn't see a lot of comic makers or see a lot of comic characters who look like me. And especially like growing up, someone who deals with depression and anxiety, those aren't stories that I see talked about within people of color communities, especially not growing up and not, you know, really understanding, you know, my feelings or how to process them. So to be able to compile them in these zines and share them with other people, it's a way for me to connect and realize that I'm not alone. And I wish that for other people too. One of my favorite things is tabling at Zine Fest and getting a chance to speak to young artists and see young artists who look like how I looked as a child, and being able to show them that this is like a thing that anybody can do. That literally all you need is a piece of paper and some ink, and you can make zines. I can talk a little bit about my process. So everything starts with my sketchbook. I have a ton of these sketchbooks. They're just filled with just art of whatever. Sometimes it's just crazy pandas. But I use them as a journal also. So however my thoughts come out that day is how I'll draw them. Sometimes they'll come out in like little silly sketches like this guy. Oh, look how sad. I'm sad that summer's over. And sometimes they come out in like crazy stream of conscious comics. This was one that I drew about like tooth pain. I had to get a root canal last year, and I was in a lot of pain, and anybody who's had tooth pain knows that like over-the-counter meds only work so much. So like processing pain through art and drawing. And sometimes I'll write out full stories, storyboard them, but everything always starts with my sketchbook. And then from there, I compile them into these collections, which is the No Pants Revolution books. And I like how they all, like I said before, sort of illustrate my life at that time. So this is the very first one. And it's probably more plain than some of the other ones. Like I said, I have a lot of like single panel drawings because I was really just working through like, how can I get myself to draw more, and how can I get myself to just play around with art and be excited by what I'm making again. So I started off small, but then as they go on, I try to find like new creative ways to experiment with art or ways to express myself. The second No Pants has like a full page fold out, like a centerfold of me dressed as Batman, kind of. But just like silly, fun stuff. But also this collection has a comic where I talk about having depression even as a child. And so there's some parts that are more sad. And eventually they've like evolved into, like this is my most recent one, No Pants Revolution 5. And it's got like a full page sticker. You can make your own like No Pants character. So I'm constantly growing. Some of my stories got more elaborate, where you can see like different panel structures, and they're all just sort of a collection of, sometimes there's just like weird sketchbooks, sketches that I have in, and sometimes they're longer form stories, but it's just my way to share my life and my feelings with everybody else. And I want to thank Milwaukee Zine Fest for giving me a place to share those things. I love meeting new zinesters. I love being able to trade zines. I even sometimes give away my zines. In Chicago here, we have a ton of those like free little library boxes that are on the street corners. And sometimes I'll just stick my zines in there because I hope that like maybe somebody will find them and be like, oh, this is like a funny little thing that I've put out into the world. So any way that I could share my art, and zines always seems to be the best, easiest, cheapest, without having to worry about, you know, publishing a full book or worrying about like, can I even write a full book? It's just being able to have that collection of all of my ideas and experiences. I could show you a little bit more really quick. So even something as simple as all you need is like a sheet of paper and some pens. This is actually the master copy for a mini No Pants Revolution that I made as a preview for my No Pants Revolution 4. And I actually redrew, so this is all hand drawn on this actual sheet of paper. I redrew comics that I knew I was going to include in No Pants Revolution 4. And now I can just like photocopy it, cut it, and fold it into like a little mini book zine. And this is something that pretty much anybody can do if you have a piece of paper and a pen. And I would love to encourage more people to do that and share their work, because I'm excited to see everybody's work. Don't know if I have too much more. I could just talk a little bit about my books and my art. I'm at Saturn2169 on Instagram and Twitter, and I have a website, AndreaPearsonArt.com. That has a link to my store, where I have all 5 of my No Pants Revolution books, all these guys. I also drew a small children's series called Mito and Me, which is about like the joy of discovering books as a kid. And it features kind of like a caricature of me and this panda who read comic books together. Everything that I draw and write is themed towards like learning and growing and educating, even if it's just about like my own life and experiences. I'm hoping that other people can learn, but also hopefully find some humor and stuff in that. So I think that's about all I have. I don't know if anybody has any questions or anything. No, maybe. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. No questions yet. I think we'll just ask questions at the very end of everyone, and we can have some group conversations. I think would be the best way to do that. But I really loved hearing about your comics. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And now for our next speaker.
Okay, I can go next. So hello everyone, I'm Hannah. And Hannah Keisha Agustin. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am, before anything else, I would like to acknowledge that that I am currently in like standing on Indigenous land, specifically Ojibwa and of the Odawa people. And yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge them for yeah, for just allowing me to have this space right now. And I also would like to acknowledge the Milwaukee Zine Fest for allowing me to have a platform to share my art. And yeah, so I will just, before anything else, I would like to give you a little bit of background about me. So I'm Hannah. I'm currently a film studies and English creative writing student in Wisconsin, and I am a Filipino immigrant. I immigrated to America in 2019, and I am yeah, I immigrated with my family because my mother is a nurse, and she brought us all here, like our family here. And so the work that I do right now is mostly born out of that space, that feeling of disconnect from the homeland, and also just yeah, the homesickness and the idea of like being in a liminal space as a migrant. And that is what the zine Genesis is all about. So it is so if you like see the front page, it's just like a picture of me and my parents and my sister. And I took this last 2019. So this zine was born out of documenting the experience of my family for our first 3 months here in America, because the immigration process was super long because of the retrogression that happened in 2009. And so it took us 12 years to get here, to get the green card and to have our papers processed. And I don't think people understand that when they do talk about like migrant experiences, because it is expensive and it is hard to come to America, and to not, yeah, it just, people just take that privilege for granted a lot of the time. And that is the frustration that comes from that. That is what my project is all about. And so I have journal entries that I wrote here, and I also have I also have experiences from working at Walmart and being asked questions like if I do speak English, and why people like compliment my English, because they tell me that I speak good English for someone who just recently came to America. But they do not know the fact that the Philippines was previously colonized by Americans, and so our education system has been heavily modeled from the American education system. And so I know English because of colonialism, but people don't know that. They just know that I speak good English. And that is something that is frustrating, because the reason why I'm even able to tell these stories is because English is a tool of empire, and it was brought there. And now the good thing about all of this is that zine making and the DIY scene is revolutionary in nature. We are able to process our pain and through art and drawing and poetry and every single form of art, because we are able to take these tools and not just limit the market to people who have these big publishing companies, but we also have the ability to make these things. And that, I think that's the most liberating thing about zine making, because I remember back in Manila, um, I used to be also a part of the local zine making scene, and it was just a way to uh open the market to more people so that we can hold the means of production. And that's the most important thing about the work that we're doing here as zinesters. And I still feel like I don't have the right to claim that. But I have talked a lot about in this particular zine, I talk a lot about um learning to speak with an accent that is not Filipino English. And then my father uh, learning to cut his own hair. And my mom is like holding kitchen shears up against the side of his head to cut his hair. And that was this was how we spent our Sunday afternoons, because we realized that it was too expensive for us to like go outside and get a proper haircut. So until now, I cut my own bangs and I cut my own hair. um and I also wrestle with my mom experiencing direct racism in her workplace, because she is a nurse, and she most of her patients are old white people, and so they treat her badly, to say the least. And there has been like a lot of like negative experiences, and because I see her grieving this pain of like racism, and it's not just like me who's experiencing these things, I am also um I'm also like grieving alongside her, because I cannot take away the pain of my mother, and I also cannot take away the pain of my father, who is also experiencing all of these things at the same time as I am. And we all try to hold space for each other by being here. And I think what um that's what we've learned for the past 2 years. And so here are also some pictures that I took during the first few years. So my dad is like carrying some furniture that he found on the sidewalk, and he is like taking them into our house, so that because we like rent this apartment that we have right now. And so the different things that you see here have all been born of my father just picking up things from the sidewalk, because we don't want to buy anything, because in their defense it feels wasteful and it's like too expensive. And all those things like also show and reflect the socio-economic um circumstances that we are in as immigrants, because it's hard and expensive to be here, and it's easy to come to just go home. But because my mother works as a nurse, it's impossible for her to go home without just paying a lot of money. And so there are a lot of things that goes into immigration. So please, if you are interested in knowing more about this and seeing me write in both English and Filipino, please buy the zine on the Woodland Pattern website. Because I do think, even though like looking back, because right now I'm like 2 years in America already, so my experiences right now are much different, and there are a lot of things that I understand more right now. But there are also a lot of things that I still don't understand about like being a post-colonial body in the belly of empire. And that is something that I still try to wrestle with in my own work. And I think the good thing about zine making is that these things are archived, and we are able to make a history of our own that is not just held by predominantly white, male, um rich people. And that's what I love most about this space that we are in. And so the second zine that I have on the website is Placeholder, which is a book of poems, like a micro chap book of poems that I created while grieving the pandemic and my grandmother's dementia while I am here. Because when I left the Philippines, she still remembered me, but now when I do like video call with her, she does not remember me anymore. And that is the space that I'm trying to write into when while producing this book. Because it is hard, because my mother lived through the Second World War, and there was also a lot of generational trauma that has just been caused by empire and colonialism, and all these things that are systemic, but I feel them on a personal level because generations of my family have just carried this trauma within them. And um, as the only writer in my family, my parents are my dad works as a custodian for an apartment here, and my sister works at a bank, and I'm the only like writer in the family. And so some part of me feels the urge to document these things and to try to make sense of them. And I think that's what zine making and writing is all about, because I think it's important for us to remember these things so that we can look back and see our past through our own lenses um as people who have been marginalized by the mainstream. And so I think art is definitely a language. And so I do hope that these pieces speak to you. Before I end, I just like to promote some things. I have a micro chapbook coming out in Ghost City Press in the summer, which is titled Brown Dwarfs of Different, which is also a compilation of poetry that wrestles with being a brown dwarf, and it's a multimedia poetry project. And please reach out to me on Instagram. I'm hk dot Agustin, Agustin. Please follow me on there. I'd love to talk to people, and just like this is my first like zine fest in America. And I, as much as I love to like do this in person, it would be cool to like actually still talk to all of you in the virtual world. And I'm just so excited to be in the same space as Mecca, as Andrea, as Celeste, because they're such wonderful artists, and I'm just so excited to be here. And I'm very grateful for Milwaukee Zine Fest for holding this space. And that's all I really have to say. Thank you again. Woo. Woo.
That's awesome. It's so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing. Appreciate you. And we are moving on to one more speaker.
Holy water. How do I follow up any of that? Like, oh, my heart. Hey, oh my God, that was just so beautiful. All of those presentations. Hi, my name is Celeste Contreras Skierski. My first name is Jessica Ann. I prefer to go by my middle name. And I honor my mom using her last name, Contreras or Contreras, however you want to pronounce that. Currently, I am an MFA candidate at UWM Milwaukee at Peck School of the Arts. And right now I'm in my studio in Kenilworth. So I just sort of wanted to give a little preview of, if if we weren't going through this, COVID era of living, I would have invited you all here, to actually like touch and hold the books. I am currently focused in book arts here at UWM. So outside of my studio, I have like a ton of stuff out here. And then on this side of my studio, sorry if this is making anybody nauseous. I will only do this for a second. I dumpster dive this library cart. So I have my artist books on this cart now. And one of them is a blender. There is stuff in there. So I love artist books. I love zines because it's actual art and artifacts of our human experience that you can touch. So right now I'm like carving all these wooden blocks, and I'm carving a lot of them in the round. Whoops, my hair's in the way, sorry. But I hopefully one day someone will come and play with these and sort of stack them up. But let me go back into my studio. And then, so I just wanted to show you that. So you are all welcome here if you want to do a tour, a little visit. We could do like one-on-one tour, visit, studio tour. And okay, I'm gonna try to share my screen. Okay, share screen. Here we go. Okay. So you should be looking at my Spark page. How do I hide this? Hide. Oh, well, maybe it doesn't hide. Okay, so this is my Spark page. I started using a Spark page just because it's free for, I think it's free for everyone. I'm in the student mode, forgive me. So right now what I'm focusing on is in book form is the ceremony of books. And the whole point of this research is to remember who we are. So this is a facsimile of a Mixtec codice. So Mixtec is one of 400 tribes of the Americas, or what we know as the Americas, because Indigenous people are older than America. And so I'm using the facsimiles as evidence of who we were, of who we are, of how we documented things. And so with all of that research, I actually chose UWM Peck School of the Arts because of Max Yella, who runs the Special Collections Library here at UWM. And I met him in my undergrad at Alverno College, and he came into a book arts class, and I said, "Who are you? I want to be wherever you are, teach me, So I chose this program specifically because of him and that library. And so all that research I'm doing now, I'm creating my own codices. So this is Codice Sitlalinikwe. That is my spirit name. On my mom's side, we are Mexica, AKA Aztec blood. And I use a lot of ceremony, history, and all of that in my bookmaking process and in the stories I'm telling. And then on my dad's side, I'm Polish, and we have Blackfeet Cherokee blood in there as well. And so specifically, this image here that's going to be part of my new codice that I'm writing, I'm using image as language. And so the Nahuatl language, which is the largest indigenous language still spoken throughout the Americas, is I'm interested in how that language was translated from the pictographic language that it was based on the phonemes and pronunciation. And so it's it was phonetic drawings that they were doing based on language. So it's just how we understand language when we read it in Roman and Latin type that we use right now. And so this image here, I'm starting to create my own alphabet. I'm starting to create my own asemic style of writing. And I'm also appropriating images. I'm appropriating images that were stolen from the Spanish Franciscans who also helped translate these books. And so in this image in particular, I have references to Polish paper cut, which is Wishanaki, and then papel picado, which is Mexican paper cut. And then it also goes all the way back to the indigenous people with papel mate and the ceremonies of that paper making. How do I get out of here? Okay, so here we are still. These are images that I'm gathering right now for a new book. Okay, how do I get out of here? Oh wait, can this thing move? Okay, sorry y'all, I had that thing in the way. Okay, so back to the Spark page. So yeah, I'm concentrating on ceremony, language, and that transmission of, the transmission really of ancient to colonialism to conquered to surviving all of that. And so I can send my Spark page if you want. It's a lot of my research I'm doing now. And I have been researching a lot of different Chicano artists who are also creating their own codices. And so in this image in particular, I'm using the Mexican Revolution and our ancient ancestors, and I see us here today who has survived all of this as the palimpsests, as the little bits of parts that you can still see. You know, we can still see our ancestors poking through us. And so we are the palimpsests of our ancestors. And palimpsest is something that's really common in like manuscripts. It's something when you have written something and then you erase it and who's there, you know, who's left. And, you know, quite literally we are. So I have different artists that I admire and stuff in here. Now I'm focusing too on these paper spirits. So paper spirits are cut paper that have deep spiritual ties to existence, to agriculture, to spirituality, to survival. And I'm thinking about, you know, what can I do with these? Who are these spirits? What are they for? Why are they coming to me? You know, I work very intuitively. All of this research you see here is intuitive work that I've sort of just started as some sort of process of using my hands, using history, using language. And what do I want to say with all of this? You know, once I have all this information, you know, what are we left with? What do I have to say? What's important? And so the erasure of colonialism is what I'm interested in, because that is quite, you know, survivalist. That's us surviving trauma. It's us, you know, really sprouting and being born into this new language. And I use art as a language. And then, and so this was Codex Contreras that I made last year. And I was really interested in like album covers. And if you look at like old album covers, they have really beautiful like accordion qualities to them, and folds and little sort of pockets and places you can stick things. And so I made these two album like folios. And inside them, 4 books can be, you know, housed inside of that. And then I made a box that those then go into. And so these are just pages. So sorry about these horrible photos. But, you know, I love capturing the moment and that energy of creating. And sometimes a lot of that is captured in like, you know, really ugly photographs. And that's okay with me, you know, like that's part of the process as well, is also just, being like, yeah, this is my work, you know, trying to be okay with that. And so I'm using a lot of ancient images like this head. These heads here are, some people say they symbolize life, death, and then rebirth, you know, but I also have like this sacred number thing, like 3. 3 has been like a number I know that comes to all of us in some ways, but so I'm starting to like use numbers as well. And what does that mean? Like, I don't know. Like, and I just think books and exploring all of that is like the perfect way to ask those questions and to be vulnerable. And yeah, and so in my research, I also found this word that I want to teach you all, tlacuilo. Tlacuilo literally is the Nahuatl word for bookmaker, painter, writer, artist. So that's who we are, we are those tlacuilo. Everyone talking today are the tlacuilos, tlacuilex, so these words are like coming to me in my research. It's all intuitive. And the coolest thing about this too is like tlacuilos have been known to like be born into their role of like who they are. And I love all of those little moments of research and of serendipitous, connections. It's like the stars all align. We're all here right now in this panel for reasons. And books and our ancestors, like to me, like books are the exact connection, that exact line that connects us modern Tlacuilos to our ancient ancestors who are bookmakers. And on every continent in this beautiful world, we all have been making and building books. We've all been documenting and taking, receipts of who we are. And for all of us, books are connected to that. And so my real mission here is to remind people libraries are for everybody, books are for everybody, and zines are even more accessible for everybody. And then I'll also share a link to that was part of my artist in residency at the Milwaukee Public Library. And on this link, we have really great photos, but then we also have this free zine printout. And this printout, it's actually a zine that you have to fold. It's that easy 8-page zine. And then within there, I give you 2 other zines to create too. So without taking up any more time, I'm going to end that right there. And I'm so honored to be on this panel. And thank you all for listening. Did I stop sharing?
No, thank you. That was so wonderful. Thank you. And I really just want to thank all of you for coming on here, sharing your voice, your story, your craft. It's just like so inspirational to see how you've started your work and where it is now. And that's where at least the first question goes, which I want to open up to everyone, which is, what are your next plans, especially with us all being in the pandemic? Is there anything you're really excited for as like a next step in your work?
I'll go first again. My next steps, I've really been wanting, or I've been called to make an oracle deck. So I really love, Celeste, how you were saying, we're in the direct line of the people that came before us. And I literally was just telling one of my housemates the other day that like Zora Neale Hurston, she wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God for me, like, cause I'm in that line and like, I'm one of those women, like, but I'm living today. And like Audre Lorde wrote her books for me. Like she wrote, you know what I'm saying? And so now I want to take my poems and like connect them to Octavia Butler's work in The Parable of the Sowers and the Talents, because she has these little snippets of like what they call like the earth seed, which is like, it's like, you have to read the books to know, but it's, I just feel like it's so timely. And Octavia Butler, she's like an ancestor that left us these like crazy sci-fi books that are set in 2024. I'm like, okay, girl, I see you. I'm on the jump. I got 3 more years. So I've been wanting to, combine my work with hers. So part of that, I have to reach out to her, publishing company and ask for permission. But I also want to turn that Oracle deck into an NFT. So if any of y'all know about like the crypto world and like basically they have like online galleries, you know, like all of us that have like our work, and if you can make it into digital form, you can like turn it into your own asset, which is really cool. So I've been studying cryptocurrency and how to like get into that art world too, because that's like the next frontier. So that's what's next on the books for me. Yeah.
Sweet. Yay. Anyone else have any immediate plans?
Sure, I could talk a little bit about, I'm actually working on, I'll continue to be working on the No Pants books, but on top of that, I'm starting like a new series of trivia books. I think a part of me, I'm like always learning more things. I love trivia, and I want to do like a series of small like educational books on like my own gaps in my own knowledge, like things that I would like to learn more about, and do that research and then like share it with other people. So that's something that I've been working on throughout the pandemic, and then I'm hoping to debut soon, coming soon. So.
I can go next. So for me, I am working on the archive again. So I'm in the process of like making my first, hopefully, chapbook of poetry and the archive, and just show like I have like harvested post-colonial artifacts, and I'm like interweaving it with my own personal narrative and my family's narrative as migrants and as post-colonial bodies. And yeah, I'm like making it into an elaborate text and image thing. But yeah, it's still in the process right now, so we don't really know when it's gonna be like conceived. But yeah, it's still in the womb. But yes, that's what I'm working on right now.
That's awesome though. But yeah, that's even like, even that first thought of a project is still like part of its story, its journey into creation. So that's very exciting. If anything else, I did also want to throw out there if any of you have any advice that you would give to people that want to make zines, and even very specifically for fellow BIPOC and non-white creators, and where to find their space and their voice, and take their voice into the Zine Fest and just general creative sphere.
I guess, the first step of that, I would say, is probably just keep making things. And if there are things that you do want to share with people, then share them, even if it's just with your family and friends to start with. Also, I think the biggest revelation for me was just finding my people and going out there, and sometimes that even means like creating the space yourself, like not being afraid of being like, hey, I'm gonna start this drawing club or this comics club or this zine club, like who wants to join me? But just really just reaching out and trying to find those people. Sometimes it takes time. Like I feel like it took me a long time to find people who I really feel like I related to, and people who created things and that I wanted to share stuff with. And so just having this digital space now, it's so much easier to like find those people through social media and things like that. And events like this is a big thing. Like that's been a big thing for me to like reach audiences and reach more kids, is doing more zine fests and comic fests and things like that. So just keep creating and sharing it with the people that you want to share it with.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Andrea just said too. Yeah, just don't forget who you are. I think the whole, can you hear the urgency in these presentations? There's this urgency, and this need to remember who we are, remind our community, this is for us. This is actually from us. This goes all the way back, way before, Biblioteca. Amaxcali was the library, in Nahuatl, and so like, this is our space, take that space. If you know that if we remember who we are, we remember what's ours and our story, even if we don't have a history of it. Our story right now is what matters, and words matter, our stories matter, and who's documenting them and making them accessible to who. Protect your research, do your research, throw out the research, burn a book, grow a book, there's so many ways, get rid of the book, think outside of, the folio in a paper, what is cloth, what is wood, what is, the body, like we are the story, we are the book, did you see the vulnerability in these presentations? Because it's our story, it's our information. We're giving it to you right now. That's power, and I just think I'm so grateful for Zine Fest Milwaukee, for the bindery, for everybody on this panel to remind us all that this matters. And we have the information, with or without a facsimile, with or without the story of an elder. But imagine with the elder, what do we do with that, so.
Yes to all of that. I would just add to like what I've been reminding myself is like, I'm an artist regardless of anybody else's opinion or observation or any of that, and like I had to be my own, like even I use Instagram as a manifestation tool and to archive myself. I'm like, I can just, like nobody else even has to tell me anything about me. Like I'm just gonna keep making because it's literally my lifeblood. And I have this poem in my little Sunroute zine. I'm gonna read it. It's in here. And it's from those wee moon calendars. Cause I'd be like, so this is like my son's artwork. I just be like keeping and collaging everything. So this is a poem called The World Needs Your Creativity. The world needs your creativity, your fire of ideas, your spark of divinity, a trinity, inspiration, intention, invention, forged, I suppose, where thought meets soul. What wildfires we evoke with brushstroke, keystroke, words spoke, what lives we light when heart-stoked embers fall on fertile company. And that's just, just keep making, make whatever, calls to your heart. And even if you only share it with one person, you could inspire them for the rest of their life. So that's what I would say. And I'm only on this panel because I put myself out there. So like, I'm saying? Can't nobody, you got to do it sometimes. They're not always going to come ask you, So I'm just keep doing it. We here.
Yeah, like I had to turn on my volume. I'm over here just like, yes, yes, yes to all of you. And even going off of that too, I'm like so inspired hearing you all like just having the confidence and the power to tell your artistic stories and voices. And with that, when you hit an art rut, which is always inevitable, what do you turn to even outside of art to feel inspired again in getting back into your process?
I can go. I think, because I was also like screaming just earlier from what everyone said, because like creation is resistance, and we need to do this for our liberation, because this is the only way that we can like own our stories. And I think that's what inspires me outside of like art, is that the community that I'm in, and because I'm part of a feminist collective back in the Philippines, and we do a lot of like organizing work with peasant women, and we allow them to like tell their own stories, because it is important for it is important for us to remember these stories, because who else will remember these stories? And it's important for those that will come after us, for them to remember as well, because I think that those are the things that inspire me most, like organizing and the community that I'm in. And also myself, I guess, like I do this also for myself, because like what Mecca said, like we must advocate for ourselves. We have been marginalized, but now in order to resist against that marginalization, we must advocate for ourselves and hold space for ourselves as well, to tell these stories. And I think that's powerful. So yeah.
I want to throw out there too, does anyone else have any like non-artistic inspirations that then they bring back into their craft, even if it's just a matter of like a ritual or something you do when you just cannot get the creative juices flowing?
Yeah. I connect with nature. I'm a total city girl. You know, if I go to the country with my mom, she's like, lock the doors. You know, like, you know, we're total, you know, I'm a metropolis sort of girl. But there's spaces in the metropolis of, you know, with nature, and, you know, even like just going for a walk with an artist. Oh my gosh, have you walked with an artist? Like, you know, like you just find so many the coolest things, you know, like in, you know, in an anthill, in a crack in the cement, in, you know, a tree, in anything. Like, it's really like disconnecting from like this to like, you know, look up, stretch your neck. You know, I know we're always like this, writers and drawers, like, look up, you know, lay on the ground, put your, you know, bare feet in the sand, in the dirt, on the cement, wherever, you know, like bugs in nature, that gets me right away, you know, or just, you know, looking at the sky for like 20 minutes, like, whoa, ideas. Baths, I need a bath. Submerging myself in water. I actually have a little journal by my bath for the shower, and, you know, I'll be writing in there because all the ideas come.
I think to piggyback off of Celeste, I think similarly, like moments of silence are very important, and like disconnecting. And so sometimes that's like nature, going for a walk, sometimes it's baths. And yeah, I definitely noticed that like in those moments of silence when I can actually like listen to my brain like think, you know, are important. And when the inspiring thoughts start coming back, so like, you know, being able to like put down your phone or turning off the TV or meditating or going for a walk, things like that, those are things that like I feel like help me the most, because yeah, everything else can be overwhelming or just like noise that you don't need. Also just like consuming art from artists who inspire me also helps a lot, like especially if I like go back and figure out like what are the things that inspired me initially, like going back and like rereading some of those books or rewatching some of those films, or and I remember like why I'm making art in the first place, or just discovering new artists, you know, and finding something that you're excited about again. Those are all things that can definitely help when, you know, you're in kind of a rut.
And to add to all of that, I would say when I need inspiration or to get myself out of a rut, I kind of, instead of like resisting the rut, a lot of times I'll just be like, oh, I forget, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to even, ain't no rut. You know what I'm saying? I'll just be like, well, I guess this is just the season of time where I should just watch Netflix, or you know what I'm saying? Or I should just, I mean, yeah, I get out in nature and I have 2 little boys. So like, you know, just playing with them or doing the dishes even will bring inspiration a lot of times, or, you know, just like allowing the mundane to be ceremony. And just, I like to tap into, yeah, anything that I think our ancestors could have done other than be on a smartphone, which is hella stuff. So I just am like, I feel like the inspiration is all over. But yeah, I don't like to pressure myself like I have to do something to get out of the space I'm in. I'd rather like just let it be, because then, you know, what you allow, then whatever you need will come, right? So that's what I do.
Oh, I gotta add something to that. That was awesome. You know, I believe in timing. You know, I didn't make art for almost 10 years in my life. From like, you know, when I turned 18, you know, till it wasn't until 28, but it feels like 10 years. But you know, I didn't make art at all. I was like gathering knowledge. I'm like absorbing it, and then you know, you release it. So yeah, so I believe in timing.
And I think we did have Zach, if you want to be unmuted.
Ooh, I do. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hi, panelists, and hi, Quinn, and hi, anybody else who's listening. This is the weird voice, floating voice of Zach. I am the director of the Bindery, and I work with the Zine team and the Milwaukee Public Library team to produce Zine Fest. And I know I could have typed this into the chat, but I just wanted to kind of say it out loud, quote unquote, in person, that it's been so incredible listening to you all today, and also just to like see your faces and your gestures and your expressions, because everybody really, except for Celeste, I've only interacted with you like via a screen or via email. And so it's really wonderful to kind of see your space and your work and kind of your smiles and the smiles in your eyes while you talk about these things. So thank you so much. I'm definitely going to reach out to all of you again in the background to see if we can get you involved in all sorts of other things beyond just this one thing, because I think others would be really inspired to hear and learn from you. Maybe we can kind of do a project together and invite others to that project. I don't know, my brain is like spinning after all of this. So I'll shut up, but I just wanted to say that out loud before you just get a random email from me later that's all in capital letters with exclamation points. So I will, can I mute myself again? How do I go away?
I think that's, I think
Oh.
Yay. All right. I do want to also open the floor all like back up to all of you too. Like, do you have any more comments you want to like add to the conversations we've had, or like any further thoughts on your craft or any other kind of inspiration? I'm even still just thinking about allowing the mundane to be ceremony. That's insane. I'm taking that with me full-heartedly. And I also open the floor to if anyone else that's attending would like to ask any questions. You can add it to the Q&A, or you could just write it in the chat and I'll shout it out. Yeah, I'll give a moment for that, but I do just want to say too, oh, you're all very inspirational. Like, I just want to keep hearing you talk, and it's great. And if not, I can throw out more questions too while everyone's thinking, our attendees. But I think even when I think about like approaching a zine, and like how you can like look at like a blank page and then like go from there? Do you have like a process in which you get your brain onto the paper, whether it be an organized way or just kind of like blotting it down? What is your streamline into making that final product?
I could talk for a second about this. From like a really early age, I started drawing, and my parents, I was very gracious, even though we didn't have a lot of money, gave me the tools, paper, pens, and things, and the encouragement to keep drawing. And I think it's important to give kids in your life the space to create. I feel like there's a lot like stigma about like being an artist and like being a professional artist, but not everybody has to be a professional artist, and that doesn't have to be the goal for everybody. But I think it's important to encourage kids to express themselves, you know, through art and drawing or writing or dancing or however it is that they want to express themselves creatively, and just giving them that space to do it without judgment and, you know, without editing, and just letting them become themselves, you know. And I think that that's, you know, the first step into like, I think the zine process is like the fact that I had a sketchbook to just dump all my thoughts and feelings into, like unorganized, and then later when I did feel like sharing, I had all that. Like I can go back to my sketchbooks and I can show and say like, this is the person that I've become through my art and sketchbooks. And so just giving people that space to be able to express themselves, so that then, you know, if they want to share it, they can. If not, they don't have to. But like, that's really like the first step, is just like really encouraging somebody to be like, you know, keep making, you know, keep expressing yourself.
Yeah, I definitely think that holding space for people is a love language too, because you allow them to be their fullest selves. But yeah, I just wanted to respond to Andrea's insight. But for me, I guess like one of the most important parts of my process is research, because I do acknowledge that even like outside of like the academy, like we can also like research for ourselves. And because like for me, I'm doing a lot with like history, and a lot of these narratives have been like curated by by like straight white men who are in power, and I just do not resonate with that. And so trying to find alternative ways of like storytelling is also important for me. um and yeah, and also like seeing the works of those who have come before me, who have made space for me to like fully express myself. That also allows me to like draw inspiration, like Lorian Zaldua, Cherry Moraga, even like Filipino writers like Jessica Hagedorn and other like revolutionaries. That's those people like inspire me a lot to like make sense of my own work. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. I think we are done with questions. So I did want to say, if anyone has any final thoughts that they'd like to part this panel with, we would be blessed to hear you say it. But that's up to you, because otherwise we're nearing the end of the session.
I want to say thank you so much to Zach and Quinn and Mycia and all of the rest of the rock stars of Zine Fest. And I wish I could have been there more to partake in so much more. Grad school is a blessing, and I am selfishly taking these 3 years, you know, to focus research to become a better community artist for the community, you know. So when I'm done with this in 1 year, you know, I'll invite you all to my thesis show. I'm building a temple, a library temple ceremony thing, and you are all invited to that. And I'm also looking for another space. So maybe the bindery has some space to show more of my stuff. But that's another discussion. But I just can't thank you all enough. The work you've all done, I've been watching it, I've been seeing it. Thank you so much. This panel was incredible. I'm so inspired. I'm painting right now. I'm gonna keep working. Thank you all for your words of truth.
No, for real. Thank you all so much for taking the time, for sharing your work, for sharing your wisdom and your thoughts. I feel like at least I'm personally walking away also very inspired, ready to create right after this. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing yourself with Zine Fest. And with that, I just want to let anyone know who's watching. The Discord is still up and going. If you're feeling inspired and want to share your work, share your thoughts on there. We have the hashtag MZF 2021. Anything you've made this weekend or you're inspired to after this weekend, go ahead and share it. Everyone will be looking at it, and especially make sure that you are looking at Woodland Pattern. This is up for the rest of the weekend, so I want to make sure that everyone gets over there and checks out, oh, that's the panelists only, checks out zines, go support zines. And with that, I got to say thank you to you all again. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and please be sure to share with us what you'll be creating. We'll be happy to see it and showcase that.